I was hopeless and depraved of life. And the one thing that I needed was change. I'm a big advocate for changing your situation. Don't put a Band-Aid on the problem. That I was unhealthy. I was overweight. My insulin was through the roof. My blood sugar was through the roof. And I just was metabolically unhealthy. If I was on my feet for longer than 30 seconds, I would go numb. And if I didn't sit down after about 30 seconds or so, once it started going numb, I would fall over. I'd have to sit on the side of the tub for a basic shower just to get myself clean. One time we went on a call and we had to walk 45 minutes back to a waterfalls for a call. And we were carrying equipment and stuff. And I was like, my goodness, I'm going to be the next one, you know?
Okay, so let me welcome Shawn to the program. Shawn, I like the way you spelled it, the same way as mine. And you are, I guess I saw you are not the accidental carnivore, but the intentional carnivore. And I like the 4th of July. You 4th of July, got the U.S. flags up there and everything. Good for you. Where are you located, man?
Right outside of Greenville, South Carolina.
Greenville, South Carolina. Okay. You didn't sound like you had a Boston accent, I was going to say. So.
Never get mistaken for that.
Yeah, exactly. When you've got quite a compelling story, so I'm excited to hear about this. And where'd you grow up?
Honestly, I grew up right here about 5 minutes from where I live. I haven't traveled very much, haven't moved around very much. Born and raised right here, never left.
Okay. I guess we'll get to it. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've lost almost like 250 pounds or something like that. Is that what I remember saying about you?
That's correct. I've lost 245 pounds since April the 17th of 2022 when I started Carnivore.
So in a little over a year, almost 250 pounds. That's darn impressive. That's pretty amazing. And I guess we should start the stories. How the hell did you get there in the first place? How did you get to whatever you were, 400 and something? What was your top weight? Or do you know?
It's 257 pounds is all that I know. I was probably a little bit bigger because I had about a month of carnivore under my belt whenever I weighed, but I just didn't have scales big enough to weigh myself and had to wait till I went to the doctor. But just years of unhealthy living. I worked EMS, so I was always on the go for 12 years, in and out, running calls, no slowdowns. I knew I was a pre-diabetic for the last 25 years, but I just didn't take care of myself. Honestly, is how I ended up there. And then the last 3 years before I started Carnivore, I had lost my job as a medic. I was depressed beyond belief. I didn't leave the house. I was isolated. I laid around on the couch, all those things, just making my situation a lot worse until I was finally diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I've had gout. I've had shingles. 2 different times I had shingles, but just unhealthy eating and not really taking care of myself, not taking medicines or eating properly or getting exercise or anything. And one thing led to another and it compounded.
What do you weigh these days?
The last time I weighed 212.
So you were well over 450 pounds at some point. And that's it's got to be tough to function in life and just for anything. Imagine trying to work as a paramedic. That's got to be challenging, right? Just correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Even it's something as simple as we would be doing CPR on a patient. And there were many times where I'd get lightheaded and stuff. You're trying to perform duties when you're unfit for duty, really. And I remember one time we went on a call and we had to walk 45 minutes back to a waterfalls for a call. And we were carrying equipment and stuff. And I was like, my goodness, I'm going to be the next one. And honestly, my health was a lot of the reason why I lost my job, but I just couldn't perform my duties, honestly, is why I lost my job. I was as big around as I was tall. I was unhealthy. And you can't help other people when you're not taking care of yourself. That's a fact.
And how tall are you? Just for reference.
5'8".
5'8", 450 plus pounds. So you damn near were as tall as you were round as you were tall. Your waist circumference was probably, you remember what your waist size was? Probably.
I was in a size 70 pants and I would wear 6X shirts. So
70 waist.
70 waist. Yes. The pair of pants that I have in there to get in to do my pictures to make up for it, it was a size 70 waist.
Yeah. And so your waist size was bigger than your height. So it's pretty impressive, and not in a good way, but pretty interesting. So what kind of day-to-day struggles would you have outside of being able to do it? Was it just difficult in and out of cars, putting on clothes? What kind of difficulties does someone of that size run into?
I couldn't walk. If I was on my feet for longer than 30 seconds, I would go numb, like basically in my sciatic nerve or around that area, or hips. And if I didn't sit down after about 30 seconds or so, once it started going numb, I would fall over. Those kinds of things. I couldn't take a shower without sitting on the side of the tub because of that, just being in the shower and trying to wash, just that little bit of movement that a lot of people take for granted. You're in the shower, you don't think anything about it. I'd have to sit on the side of the tub for a basic shower just to get myself clean. Riding in the car, I wouldn't hardly get in the car. Like I said, I was so isolated. I really didn't have anything to do with family, friends, anything. But whenever I did those handful of times over that 3 years, the sides of the dashboards and your plastic parts in your car would dig into the side of me to where it hurt so bad that I just refused to do anything and stuff like that. You get in your mind. Even now I struggle because with the idea of going to a lot of places, because you don't think about oftentimes how far it is from where you park to get into the restaurant or the facility that you're going to, how many stairs there are, is there a chair that I can sit in that's going to hold me, things like that. And that's something that you get used to operating, thinking that way. And even now I fit there, I can go there, I can walk however many miles I want to walk now and do. But it's hard in your mind to stop thinking that way a lot of times.
Yeah, this is a good chance to segue into something, because there's a lot of people out there. You'd think that you're 450 pounds. Wow, that's crazy. But there's a lot of people now in that situation. And a lot of them are advocating for, we should really accommodate this sort of stuff. And we should have extra large chairs. And on an airline, you should be given 2 seats. And we should make that life more accessible for something like that. Would that have helped you to say, if you could have remained at 450 pounds because we were more accommodating? Would that have been in retrospect, would that have been a good thing for you?
Absolutely not. I was miserable and I was hopeless and depraved of life. And the one thing that I needed was change. I'm a big advocate for changing your situation. Don't put a Band-Aid on the problem. I feel like that's a lot of times what we do with the medications. You're masking a problem. I used to get so aggravated with the opioid pills and stuff like that because you're not fixing the problem. You're masking the problem. We need to fix the problem. And my problem was that I was unhealthy. I was overweight. My insulin was through the roof. My blood sugar was through the roof. And I just was metabolically unhealthy. And not only mentally was I grasping for straws for a reason to live, but physically my body was deteriorating. I had even the edema, like I could press on my legs and the fluid would come out. If I had continued in the shape that I was in, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I probably wouldn't be here to have this conversation with you today in any form, because I just felt like at any given point that I was going to die.
And how old are you, Shawn?
I turned 40 in January.
Wow. And so this isn't something that just crept up in a few weeks. This is something that went on for years and years. Prior to losing all this weight, while you were at your peak, how long had it been since you'd actually been healthy or normal weight? Or did you ever experience, were you overweight your entire life?
I've been overweight and unhealthy my entire life. I've spoke on the channel a couple of different times. I wear a size 34 very comfortably, and probably a 32 now. I remember riding in the car with my mom as a kid, going to this place right outside of Greenville on the other side to get clothes, and her mentioning that she was looking for a 34 Husky for me. And so that was...
How old were you at that time?
I couldn't have been older than, I guess, maybe 11 or 12. And I've never been a healthy weight my whole life. So since I was a small kid.
And what about your family? Are parents on the obese side? Is it running the family? Or is there some sort of just all your grandparents? Is it multi-generational, or what? Are you the new one?
My grandmother was overweight. She had a very serious metabolic issues, ended up passing in 2013 from complications from that as well. But most of all, everybody else in my family was skinny unhealthy, I guess you could say. They didn't have a weight problem, but they did have other issues. My dad, he's not overweight per se, but he's had a lot of kidney issues and heart attacks, stuff like that. Yes, it's unhealthy, but not weight was my issue, I guess you would say. Whereas they weren't overweight as bad, but they still had a lot of issues from being unhealthy.
Yeah, but I mean, before you got to 450 plus, whatever you ended up at, you had to realize this isn't good for me. It's not healthy for me. You probably thought about diet and exercise at some point. What are the things you had tried throughout the years or did you? Maybe you just said, hell, I'm just happy where I'm at. Did you ever try to lose weight?
Man, I tried all kind of things to lose weight. I've done protein shakes. I've done P90X. I did these HCG injections one time, shooting these little hormone shots into my stomach that's supposed to cause weight loss. I did the hydroxycut pills. I've done Adipex. I've done everything you could imagine. I've tried to starve myself to try to get to some kind of a weight. I tried working out. The last thing I tried prior to this incident was just working out and doing protein shakes and eating fruits and vegetables only.
And why do you think those things didn't work for you?
I don't believe any of them were sustainable, for one thing. Not getting the proper nutrition, you're going to start, there's no way to get satiated enough to give your body the nutrients it needs to function. You're just going to get worse. You're going to continue down that road, but you're not going to see that kind of a progress. It's not going to set yourself up for success. Looking back on it, I see that now. But as far as the HCG, I'm not getting to the root of the problem. I'm not changing what's causing my issues by doing all those different things.
Yeah, let's say you're eating protein shakes, fruits and vegetables, which if you sustain that for a long period of time, a lot of people would lose weight on that diet. What would be the thing or would there be an event? Why would you stop doing those things? I'm not losing weight. Screw it. I'm just tired of this. Or was there something that triggered you to say, I'm just going to go back to eating the unhealthy food?
Just the trigger, I would guess, would be the best thing to describe for me, because I just wasn't fulfilled, wasn't happy, wasn't desired, or maybe my mind frame just wasn't right to try to continue doing that kind of thing. I just couldn't get enough. I never got that fulfillment or energy like I needed or wanted, or even the results, because even doing those things, I did lose weight, but I never lost weight in a way that I felt like the sacrifice was worth it at all. I didn't feel like good enough that the sacrifice was worth it either.
So you're saying that, and when you mean sacrifice, what do you mean by sacrifice? I can't have good food that I like, that I'm hungry all the time, or what was the sacrifice you're referring to?
All the above. I've always been as far as I never liked salads. Fruits I could take or leave, but making a mainstay every day out of just having those select few things. The protein shakes that I took whenever I was trying to do those kinds of things were absolute horrible. I did all kinds of things, mixing them with milk to try to make them taste better, stuff like that. But they just, for whatever reason, they just tasted horrible to me, even at that time. And I had an addiction. I was addicted to eating what I wanted to eat when I wanted to eat it. And I just had no dedication at that point.
How about working as an EMT or paramedic? You're seeing people sick all the time, every day. Clearly, you had to have seen people, you go to their house for the 5th time in 3 months because they keep having the same problem over and over again. It's a chronic disease, and it's lifestyle related. Did that ever, you're like, hey, this is me. This could potentially be me. Was that ever something you thought about, being way overweight?
Man, I tell you what, you would think it would be, but no, I never put myself a lot of times in those situations. And if I did, it wasn't any more than in passing. But yeah, we had those calls. We had the same people we would go out. I remember one call in particular where we had to carry a guy out of a home, and he was so large, like we had to call the fire department to come out, and it was like 10 of us carrying this guy out on a tarp. We call it a shamu sheet. I don't know what they call it now. But I was like, my goodness, you'd think this guy would do something. Here I am, 400 pounds, talking about this guy. It's easy a lot of times to see the problem in others, but not see it in yourself, which, like I said, I knew I had a problem and something needed to be addressed. But I was real good at thinking that I was okay and passing the buck on.
Would you call yourself a food addict?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good thing to say, especially at the time. Up until April, I would say yes. I had a horrible relationship with food because everything I did revolved. I was always looking for the next meal, or I was looking for, like most people, good time always revolved around some kind of food or beverage.
Yeah. Did the food, what did the food provide for you outside of nutrition? The reason we eat, we all creatures eat is for nutrition, but did food provide you something beyond nutrition? Was it emotional support or stress relief, or I don't know, what did you get out of food?
Definitely, it would be probably both. A stress. Whenever I would stress, I would eat. Whenever it was comfort, when I wanted to have a good time, it's like first thing you think of is, what can I have to eat? What can we do? What are we going to have to eat? If it's not good food, I'm not going, kind of thing. Yeah, I would say that'd be accurate.
And so how did you, because you tried all these things over the years, various different modalities, and it always failed for you. How did you decide to go carnivore? And you got intentional carnivore. I'm interested in where that name came from, but what was the impetus to say, I'm going to do a carnivore diet?
I found out about it by listening to Joe Rogan and Rhonda Patrick, of all people, talking about it. And they just got me to thinking. And I was, like I said, I was so depressed for those 3 years leading up to this event that I was like, man, I'm done with this life, honestly, is where I was at. And so it just got me to thinking. I'd heard them talking about it, and Joe was talking about how great it was, and the little bit of time that he had tried it. And so a couple of days later, I was researching it, and I come across this crazy doctor named Dr. Barry. And I'm like, this guy should know better. There's no way that this diet does this kind of stuff. And I'm like, but if it does, I'm willing to try that because I'm just miserable. And so I tried it for, like I said, a month, and then went back to eating how I was going. I told my wife, I said, I'll try for 30 days and see how I feel. And I felt so good. And it was the dirtiest carnivore you could imagine. I still had the honey and the sauces and stuff like that because I didn't know better. But compared to how I was eating, it was such a dramatic difference. And I could feel it instantly that month that I was like, this is what I got to do. But I kicked that can on, and that was October of 21. And I kicked that can down the road, and one thing led to another. And I had that same attitude that I talk to people about now is, tomorrow I'm going to start this and I'm going to do it right. And I was just still researching, finding out what I could find out about it, and kick that can down the road. Well, finally, right before Easter, we had an Easter dinner planned with family. And before that, April the 17th, I said, today's my day, not tomorrow, today. I'm sick of this. I'm not going. I felt good. I know that's what I need to do. And today is the day. I don't know. I can't tell you, Shawn, what triggered that or what gave me that, but I was just miserable, and I was sick of being where I was, and I was tired of talking about it, and I was ready to start doing something about it. And I grabbed a hold of it. And my wife even asked, she said, what are you going to do about the dinner we're going? We done told them we're coming. I said, I guess they better have some meat because this is what I'm doing. I'm done. Something's got to change. And from that day to this day, I haven't been perfect, obviously. There's been time where I have ate off plan. However, I've never strayed more than like one meal and then back to my plan. I just got fed up with how I was living, honestly, and changed.
Before you made the decision or even first heard about it, what was your conception about? You heard Rhonda Patrick talking to Rogan about it, and Rhonda was critical of the diet, of course, at least one I saw her do with him. Did you think, wait, this doesn't sound right, it's bad for us, were you under the impression that meat was somehow going to kill us and cause heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, and all that stuff? Is that something you believed?
I wasn't, as far as, I didn't think that meat was bad for us. I didn't care a whole lot about steak. I had chicken and shrimp and stuff like that. I didn't think meat was bad for us per se, as far as going to hurt us. But I also didn't think that you could get an adequate amount of nutrition. I had no earthly idea that you could get the nutrition that you needed from meat. I was like, there's no way that you can not have vegetables and fruits and be healthy. There's no way. Like that's contrary to everything I've ever been taught. I've never heard anything about this. How in the world am I going to survive off eating just meat and get the nutrients that I need? So, yeah, I was extremely skeptical of the idea, and I was very skeptical about the effectiveness of how it would happen eating this way.
Okay. So April 17th, you said, this is it. I'm drawing a line in the sand. I'm going to do this thing. Your wife is, what about the dinner? So how did that dinner go? How did that dinner go? And then walk me through the first few weeks, how things are laying out.
Yeah. So I started out eating 3 times a day, just whatever meats I could eat till I was stuffed. And the dinner didn't even slow me down. I made plans to go to the family dinner. And even now, like whenever I go to that same family's dinner, I'll eat before I go if I don't know what they're going to have. I have my plan. But the first month and a half to 2 months, I ate 3 times a day, whatever meats I wanted, which typically is salmon, chicken, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, which is I eat beef, butter, bacon, and eggs after that month and a half. And that's what I still eat now, minus the bacon a little. I don't care much about bacon. Usually every day now I eat eggs and steak, ribeyes.
Yeah, it's interesting how our tastes change, and we just want a lot of steak. And that's how I've been for quite a while now. But when did you know that you'd turned a corner? Was there like, I'm for the first time in my life satisfied, or I'm feeling really good? When did you know that this was working for you?
I knew, let's see, I started walking last July the 3rd, actually. I have a video that I made, a short that I never thought anybody would see, that kind of inspired me and pushed me, and then now does others. But I knew by that point last year, so sometime between April the 17th and July the 2nd or 3rd or whatever, I knew that something had changed, because the mental clarity, the mental transformation was the first thing I noticed. That I didn't wake up in despair of life. I didn't wake up like just dragging in this fog and just miserable. I started to develop so much energy that I went from laying around literally all day long, walking back and forth to the bathroom, to I'm going outside to do something. I've got to do something with this energy. And that was, like I said, 2 months in, maybe. It was relatively really quick.
And just remind me, because I think you mentioned either diabetes or pre-diabetes. What were the health issues? Obviously the morbid obesity, but what are the other health issues you were suffering from, and how has this diet impacted that up to this point?
Absolutely. Obviously, the morbid obesity, 245 pounds gone. I was diagnosed with diabetes. My A1C was 6.8 or 7, and it's now 5.2 as of May. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is also reversed. I had gout. I'm off my colchicine and allopurinol. I haven't had but one flare, and I'm not sure that it was a flare, but it was after some strenuous activity, and my ankle started swelling. Sleep apnea. I was never technically diagnosed, but my brother gave me a machine, and I quit breathing 17 times an hour. It's at 0. I actually come off of it and haven't been sleeping with it the 2 nights. High blood pressure. I was on lisinopril, amlodipine, and HCTZ. I haven't taken any of the medicine for 2 days and been off the HCTZ for a while. What's the other thing? That's about it. The depression obviously is probably the best thing by far. I would take the depression over all of it, the weight included being gone, because that was what affected me mentally the most. But it's all a blessing, man. It's a lot of stuff. And then the energy, obviously. And two, I do want to mention before I move on from that issue and we cover something else, what all those things that I do mention with that doesn't talk about also being able to be a father, being able to be a husband, being able to have life again, being able to be a son, and those kinds of things. And I lump those all in together with the fixes to the medical issues, because I feel like they're as important, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got your life back, or got a life back. Prior to that, quality of life, and actually quantity of life was very limited as far as what you're able to do. Obviously, so you're on medications, you're on lisinopril and amlodipine and hydrochlorothiazide. All these medicines to lower your blood pressure. Maybe did they put you on metformin for your diabetes, or was there any other medications they put on you, antidepressants or things like that?
They didn't, and I wouldn't approach them about any medications as far as that's concerned, because I didn't want to go on any more medications. Not that I shouldn't have been, I just didn't. I didn't go that route, because when I say I didn't go anywhere, I didn't go to my doctor until I wanted those labs to be able to track how this thing was going to work with me.
And so let me ask you this. So your doctor sees you're 400 something pounds, you got all these health issues. Are you still seeing that physician? Has he seen your transformation? And what's been the response to that?
Oh, absolutely. I am. And he's seen my blood work as well as the weight loss and everything. And I actually got a picture with him last time I went because I wanted to get a picture of his face, honestly. But I've been talking to him about the way I'm eating. And my doctor's not fully convinced that carnivore is the proper human diet, but he knows beyond a certainty that he's never seen anything like my case before. And it worked efficiently and effectively for me. And he recommends a low carb diet, but he does say adding fruits and vegetables in. For a diabetic, obviously, I would say that'd be an issue, but I'm still working with him.
Okay. He's accepting of a low carb diet, which is a plus, and many physicians don't even accept that. So I think we're continuing to see more and more converting over that, quite honestly. But as far as obviously you change your diet around, you start to feel better. Now, are you incorporating more activity, movement, exercise as well as part of this journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, when I started walking, I never really stopped until I started the YouTube stuff, which I have slowed down with that, but I plan on working out more, like weightlifting, stuff like that. I wanted to get closer to my ideal weight and drop some weight before I started working out. I didn't want to really start building a whole lot more muscle other than the walking, but I do absolutely plan on doing some of that. I would walk on purpose 3 to 5 miles a day, generally in a brisk pace, not running or anything like that. I was worried about my joints and stuff over time, especially when I was just starting out when I was at my largest.
Yeah. And how do your joints feel these days compared to maybe in years past?
It's amazing. Not even close. It's not even comparable. I was out playing with my son basketball even on Father's Day. I can't hang with a 15-year-old, I'll tell you that, but I definitely can do a lot more than I used to, and I feel better doing it. And there's so much, it's hard to even describe. Being able to bend down and tie your shoes when, my goodness, it was years I wasn't even able to see my feet.
Yeah, that's probably a sign. Hey, I can't see my feet. There's a problem here. But how about the family? Did you have a lot of support with doing this? Did they think, hey, you're going to kill yourself by eating a lot of meat, or were they very supportive for this?
Yeah, so my wife and I will celebrate 21 years the 20th this month. She's always been very supportive of whatever I do. I don't know how convinced they were of it because I had tried so many different things. This was just the next thing on the list that I was getting ready to try, that was going to try to fix my situation, which, as bad as it was, I feel like they would have accepted anything at that point. Yet they had some of the same concerns that I had, because we talked about getting it's funny, we were worried about getting all the nutrition that we could get from meat, yet we're putting all these things with almost without any nutritional value into our body. They were very supportive, and especially over time. And now my wife has been almost 3 months carnivore. My mom eats this way. My brother eats this way. My brother and sister-in-law all eat this way, and absolutely none of them ate this way and were not really, I would say, open to the idea whenever I started.
Are they getting good results?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. And my wife isn't very much overweight at all. She was 130 something pounds when she started. Not a lot of medical problems. She's lost 10 pounds in 2 months. But for her, she feels so much better with her stomach issues and all. It's just seeing dramatic results. And everybody else is too. They're having their own results, that just keeping them on it.
Yeah, so it seems to work for a wide range of people, for sure. You mentioned stomach issue. How is your digestion in that? Does it work pretty well? A lot of people say you're going to be constipated because you don't have less fiber. How's your gut? How's your gut working these days?
It's amazing. I don't go to the bathroom anywhere close to as much as I used to. I thought it was odd at first because I was used to going to the bathroom 3 or 4 times a day. And that was in my mind, a normal thing. I don't go anywhere near as often, but it's nice because I don't get that bloated feeling. I don't feel sick or heavy. It was a little bit of digestion issues starting out, getting my system adjusted to eating this way, I feel like. But I just listened to some of the things that I was hearing, and add fat, add magnesium. And between the two, I've never had a problem. I just add a little bit of fat whenever I get to where I'm spending too much time in the restroom. And one day I know to dial back the fat just a little bit.
Yeah. And did you have, because when you started, you said no one in the family was doing it, or really was kind of like, so probably with other people in the house, and I live with other people in the house, they're not 100% carnivore. My significant other, she's mostly carnivore. My son he eats a lot of meat, but he's not carnivore. So there's other food in the house, and it's particularly people that have some sort of addictive or binge eating sort of tendencies. How did you deal with that? Did you just kind of just ignore it or put it somewhere else? Or how did you deal with having other food in the house?
Honestly, whenever they would cook, whenever they would have things that were off plan, because a lot of that was going on, I would just go outside. That was one of the hardest things, especially at nighttime. Whenever they would start cooking stuff that I wanted, that I was used to eating at that time, I would go outside and sit on the swing and whatever the case is, remove myself from the situation, because anything that I could do because I knew that this was working so well. Whenever I was having those cravings, I guess you'd say, I would just remove myself from the situation or find something to occupy my time, because I knew I wasn't really hungry. That it was only because I was smelling it and seeing it and whatever. And that just it worked for me, just getting out of the situation, not looking at it. And they were pretty good about not flaunting it per se. It was there. It's still there. There's stuff in there right now that I could go get, even though most of the stuff in this house, everybody in here, my kids don't technically eat as carnivore as we do, but even my kids are coming around more to it now. I just don't desire it anymore. I feel so much better and so good that I literally don't desire to eat like that anymore. There are those times, obviously, like I said, I eat something that's off plan, but it's never with the intentions to go back to eating that way all the time or whatever. It's for whatever reason, I make that decision at that time, and I always regret it. I don't know why I do that. I guess an unhealthy look at it, but whatever the situation is, I desire to keep eating exactly like I'm eating. The ribeyes and the eggs make me feel so much different. That's where my desires are now.
So reversed diabetes, reversed non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, reversed your blood pressure issue, reversed your depression, lost 245 pounds. That's pretty remarkable. And the food you're eating, is it a special specific type? Are you eating all organic meats? Are you eating grass-finished meat only? Are you eating just supermarket meats? What do you choose?
I'll go to the supermarket, buy Walmart, get a 60 count box of eggs. That's what we have for eggs. I get Kerrygold butter when I can find it. If not, I'll find whatever other real butter I can find from the store. I have a butcher shop not far from the house. I'll go buy a rib roast, the whole ribeye, and have the butcher cut it up. I don't let him trim a bit of my fat off. I get about 15 to 18 steaks out of that, and that's it. And it's not, I think it's shipped out in from the Midwest, actually. And I'm pretty sure it's not grass fed. I think it's grain fed, grass finished maybe, but it wasn't by design. It's just what I like. Honestly, I never have given a whole lot of thought to how the quality of what it is, more so than the size of it, I guess you would say. I just try to get what works. Like it's much better than what I could find at the supermarket, but it's not the best I could find because I just couldn't afford all that to begin with.
Let me ask you that, because that's an important topic here. Are you spending more money on food these days or less money on food?
Way less food or way less money on food. I think I've figured it up, and it is somewhere between the neighborhood of $14 and $17 a day for me to eat.
And that's, in America, that's probably pretty reasonable for most people. What were you spending before? And because, not to mention medications, and I don't know, maybe you can describe what was costing you before.
Oh yeah, as far as a dollar amount, it'd be hard to put on, but I would sit down before and eat a Jersey Mike's sub, one of those giants, by myself. That's $22 here. And that's not the chips, the drink, the snacks, whatever. That's one meal, one sub. I would drink a 2-liter soda of Dr. Pepper a day, usually. That's generally $1.50, $2. You're looking at $24 right there if I have a Jersey Mike's sub and a 2-liter drink. That was just one meal. So you looking at $60 to $80 a day to eat just for me, easy, every day of the week. And I was eating so much more. I was snacking. So the price difference, along with the way you feel and what it does for me, my health wise, It's not even comparable. I save a lot more money. It's a lot more healthy, and I feel a lot better.
Yeah, good for you. And what about, you'd mentioned you got a YouTube channel now, you're putting yourself out there. And it's interesting. I see, I'm on a number of social media platforms. I'm on Twitter right now. There's a whole bunch of guys that are like similar to what you're going through. They're all big guys, 400 pounds, 500 pounds. And a lot of them are using carnivore, and a lot of them are doing the same sort of thing. It's coming off. And so why do you think we have such an obesity problem in this country? Can you maybe have some insight into that?
I think it's a number of different issues, but I think one of the biggest one is because of the lies that we've been fed by big food and big pharma, and the studies and the national guidelines that are pushed out. I feel like they're very misleading. I feel like people aren't educated enough to understand about nutrition because they can't get straight information. I feel like we're in a culture where we have ingrained in us so much to seek our own desires that we can know that what we're doing, like in my case, for example, is I knew what I was doing. I wasn't living healthy. I wasn't doing what I needed to do, but I just kicked that can down the road because it was what I wanted to do. I feel like that's like the general consensus these days. And couple those two things together, and the addiction as well. It's hard to convince someone that they're addicted to food when it's a need. And they're like, I'm not addicted. You have to eat. And so they don't understand a lot of times that you do have to eat. Your body does need energy and fuel. But what you're eating is not correct it's not the species appropriate diet for your body. And what you are eating is an addiction. And so all that together, I thought that's what's led to the epidemic that we're seeing in our society and around the world.
Knowing that, you said you've got some children. I don't know how many, at least sounds like a couple of them running around.
Do
you think you can impact them in a way that they won't suffer the same fate that you did and your mother did and your grandmother did? What is the plan there?
Man, I hope so. That's one of the things that I struggle with as a parent, as a dad. I wish I had known about carnivore way before now, because I would have loved to have started my children out, because my son is 15, my daughter is 12, and they've already got a lot of those things ingrained in them from childhood with that addiction to that sugar and whatnot. And I would really think about that a lot, that I could have avoided a lot of problems even in their lives if I had known before what I know now, and offset a lot of the health problems that potentially sets them up for. And we're trying to work with my kids on that right now to get them to see and understand about nutrition a little bit. But it's hard because they're already at the point, my daughter, my son, both, to where they know what it tastes like. They know what they want. And they eat what we buy. So it ultimately is our decision and our fault. But how far do you push that? Because they can get that anywhere they want. So it's a definite dilemma, even in my life. But it's something that I'm committed to working for, because I know that if we don't work on it now, they're going to face even more issues down the road.
Yeah, for sure. What are the things, because you said this diet, I need fruits and vegetables to be healthy, is what we're all told that. And we're told that we eat 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables a day and whole grains, and we cut the fat and on and on. That's the U.S. dietary guidelines in a nutshell. What do you think about those recommendations in retrospect, going through what you've gone through?
I think it's very harmful to people to recommend. They know that they have to know at this point that the sugars and stuff like that, especially from the fructose and whatnot in fruits, is still an addictive thing. I don't understand all the properties and makeup like you or Dr. Chafee or whoever. But what I do know is that they have mentioned many times about the fructose being one of the worst molecules that you can consume as far as sugar, it being so strong. And especially with somebody like in my case with diabetes, you're being recommended to ingest something that is literally what's causing the problem in your metabolic system. Like that's what's causing my blood sugar to go up and my insulin response, which is locking off my body's ability to access fat, burn fat, and destroying body from the inside out. I think it's, at the end of the day, I feel like I don't understand how it's not malpractice for someone to recommend something that directly leads to what their problem is that they're trying to fix. Like diabetes, for example, there should be no reason that they don't recommend a low carb, no carb diet for someone with type 1, type 2 diabetes to try to combat that issue. So that's just my personal feelings about it. It should be malpractice to prescribe any other way of eating for people that live with those conditions.
Yeah, that is something that my friend Nina Teichels has been laboring for the last, 5, 7, 8 years, trying to get the U.S. dietary guidelines to be changed to reflect that. And the result, the answer has been constantly, these guidelines are designed for healthy people. And the problem is we've got such a high number of unhealthy people in the United States, something like 70% are overweight or obese, 50% are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And I think Congress has just finally recognized the fact that we need to do something different for unhealthy people, and particularly around diabetes. I think a low carb should be the primary mechanism by which to, like you said, because if high blood glucose is an issue, and it clearly can be, then eating in a way that's going to continue to make that happen is problematic. And I know there's people that push back against that, but the reality is you can't ignore the fact that you now have a normal hemoglobin A1C. Literally the person I just interviewed for you, she's a type 1 diabetic, again, with a normal hemoglobin A1C despite type 1 diabetes. And so we're seeing this over and over again. Let me ask you where the name comes from.
It's kind of twofold. It's intentional in that I deliberately chose to eat what I'm eating now because I didn't know better for so long. Number one is, and I say that it's twofold, I feel like we have to be intentional with our decisions. And secondly, it comes from my faith. I believe in Jesus, and I feel like he was intentional. And I feel like if we who believe are going to represent him and call ourselves by his name, then we will be intentional as well. It's not that we have to force other people to believe what we believe. We just live in such a way that it represents him and put our actions where our mouth is, because I don't see a lot of that. And I feel like it's just my statement for just be an example of what you're trying to represent. And when people want that, or people see that, they'll ask you about it, or they'll desire to have it. Those are really the twofold reasons of how intentional came to be.
Yeah, you mentioned going to church, and I've had, in fact, several various pastors from different denominations come in and also doing carnivore. Do you see, if you go to church, do you see a lot of people, because there's always a church picnic or the brunch and it's a lot of junk food, it's a lot of pastries and garbage. Do you ever have discussions around that with the congregation or with people friends, family, things like that at those events?
Oh yeah, I do. And I feel like it's very much, for those of us who are in the church, I feel like we're supposed to be representative. And in my faith, we believe that our body is a temple of God. And if that's the case, we should definitely take care of it better, because if we're mistreating it and abusing it and not doing what we're supposed to do, it's kind of like saying my body's the temple of God, but I'm going to mistreat it and beat it up. It's hypocritical on our part. And we can't expect to have other people to believe or want what we have whenever we're living in such a way. And I thought that's very important, whether it be with our faith, even in carnivore, with the diet. So I felt we represent what we're doing, and we talk about it, we share it, and we set an example. And when people see that, they're going to want that. I feel like that's and that's what I urge everybody on the channel to do. When something happens to you, tell it, because, you got to be the example. And then you should understand that you've been blessed enough that you need to share that, because that's how it's going to change and impact the world with this message, is by everybody who's had these events happen to them, that's been healed by something, that's experienced something. Other people are going to see that you've been changed by it and that it's helped your situation. And that's going to go a lot further than some study in a lab somewhere or a piece of paper in a book somewhere. Your experience is going to speak louder than any words, really.
5 years ago, when you're 400 and something pounds, and you said, hey, I could die anytime, basically, because you're quite young, but you're at a point where that was going on. And so people that are critical of a carnivore diet will say you're going to have heart disease. What do you feel like your risk for cardiovascular disease is now versus what it was 3 or 4 years ago?
I will tell you now, my cholesterol, I did get my numbers. My cholesterol went from 174 before I started to 239, but my triglycerides went from 180 to 93. As far as that's concerned, every single vital blood statistic or number that I have is normal, other than my testosterone, which I have been working on. And I forgot to mention that earlier, that I do take replacement on. It's normal as well, but with medication. It's the only medication I take. However, every other vital point is in normal range when it was not in normal range a year and a half ago. As far as getting closer to cardiovascular disease and having a heart attack and all these things, so many people have mentioned that to me and told me I was going to die in 5 years from eating this way and those kinds of things. But honestly, I'm happy with how I'm living. My numbers are great. I feel good. And I could get scooped up by a pterodactyl on the way to my car in a little while to go somewhere. We all check out. 100% of people die to get out of here. And if that happens, I can tell you that the quality of life that I'm living right now is way better than I would rather have this than any of the life that I've had up until this point, as far as health, nutrition, and quality of life.
Yeah, that's an important aspect of that. Quality of life makes it, because you lived in a way that was, your quality of life was not what it is now, and probably a lot less desirable for sure. And this has given you, for the first time, maybe, and like you said, this is the first time in your life you've ever been healthy. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. Absolutely. And it's such a blessing.
Yeah. And it's something, to me, it saddens me to see a lot of kids these days that are growing up and they never have had a healthy day ever. They're literally, from the time they're little toddlers, they start out overweight and they're eating this really junky food and their parents don't know any better, because all the marketing kind of, here, have these little Gerber cruncher snacks, and they're off to the races on their way to metabolic disease, diabetes, and depression, and all those other things. And anything else you want to share? Because we're getting close to time here, but anything else, Shawn, you want to share that we didn't get to chat about?
Oh, man. The number one thing that I wanted to say whenever I spoke with you was I just wanted to thank you for your voice, because I know that you're one of the largest voices in this space, and you've done, I see you every day posting videos for years, ever since I've been in this space or come to know what carnivore was. Even on Rogan, I found the show you did with Joe. And I just want to say thank you, man, because you all doing what you did changed my life, and now gives me the opportunity to do, not on the same level, obviously, but just do my part in sharing my experience. And I feel like that's important. And so thank you very much for that, as well as speaking to everyone who may see this video or see this show or whatever. If you haven't tried it, what are you waiting on? Because you could be experiencing, maybe not at the same rate that I did, because it doesn't happen like that for everyone. I'm not trying to suggest that it does, but it could, because it did happen to me, and it's happening to other people. And I'm seeing cases of that as well. Whatever rate it is, it's worth a try. It's worth a shot. Give it 60 to 90 days, see how it makes you feel. And if it doesn't, then you can always go back to the way you were doing things. But chances are, I have yet to see anybody who regretted making this change in their life. And if I can do it, I know for a fact that you can do it too, because I was undriven, I was hopeless, and I had no determination, discipline, or consistency up until that point. But you'll find out quickly that if you take it little by little, one step at a time, you can absolutely change your life, and you will see what I'm talking about. You'll be the better for it. I guarantee it.
Yeah, good. That's a good way to sum that up. And thanks for doing that. 4th of July, you got any barbecue plans coming up, or or do you guys already have your food, or what's the story on the 4th of July for you?
Yeah, so my wife cooked a couple of hamburger patties and some butter and brought them in here today, because I ran out of steak and I didn't go get any at the butcher shop, and they're closed today. I was talking with Dr. Zaldivar. I don't know why I'm struggling today. Earlier on my show, and so I had a couple burger patties before coming on here, and I knew I was going to be on here later, and so that's about it. Now it's, like I said, the bottom fell out outside, so we ain't going outside the rest of the day, but I'll figure out something to do. We'll hang out and chill for a little while and enjoy family time.
Okay. Shawn, thank you so much for sharing your story and getting it out in public, because more people need to hear about this. And I'm sure you will inspire many more people to do that, who will in turn inspire other people. And hopefully together we can turn this horrible chronic disease epidemic around, because I don't think the government's going to do it for us. I don't think the corporations are going to do it for us. So it's upon us to do this. So thank you for doing that. And for the rest of the folks that are here sticking it out, thank you guys. I'm going to go enjoy myself some steak now in the forest. So I've had a busy day, but I'm going to get to it now. Thanks, Shawn. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Have a good forest, brother.
All right, bye-bye, guys. Hey, folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to CarnivoreDiet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success.